high positions and settings: teleportation, teleweaving, telecommunication, interception, interconnect system, interface. We have to interconnect our systems and settings because our body's going to be in information setting 100% time frame and capacity. So we have to merge and understand what our cells are doing to communicate more of the inner side system, which is the truth, not the false. We're not in the false because you have to identify the truth, understand the false, which is truth and false, false and truth. How you see that information setting is through your narrative. Understanding that is through a story. And it's how to go through a story is understanding you through operation of foundation. It's much easier to see yourself live in a fantasy, but it's very hard to identify its reality you're all coming back to. Is the foundation itself through travel. Now, mind through travel puts you in the process, how you use that. That implicates everything in case that puts you in the mind inception, lines of calculation towards travel itself. That you have to go through the body. That has to merge in subunit system, knowing exactly how to communicate to its cells inside its system, which is information bits. Nanobits, nanoseconds, nanoscreens, nanoflux. Now that's just nano. Now there's quantum. Now there's cyber. Now there's simulation, and there's self-tech, self-taught, self-merge, self-calculation, self-ground, self-realization, self-modification, self-generation, and self-position of calculation. Taught of yourself. Knowing how to formulate and simulate yourself back to yourself, the foundation itself, which is how you see yourself through codification, how you see yourself through binary, how you see yourself through your own algorithms of time format. Okay, logging in space is crucial right after it set lines of foundation, because that's the one thing you're going to be focusing on, where your body is in conception of time. If your body's not merged in set position at all levels, doesn't know how to log into space, the body's going to get very confused in position of its setting. It won't understand what it's going through, its delta heading, or anything that's tangle, foxtrot. So you have to get into your electronics. That's right. Your body has to fully come into full convergence of divergence, allegiance, and alliance that puts all communication to its sectors, vectors, quadrants, and its quads. But where it left off in its conscious of its awareness, back to itself, a foundation of 12D and 24 setting. All right. So it's Wednesday, right? It is Wednesday. How I see Wednesday is how I see the intent. It's not Wednesday anymore, is it? So if I want to stay in observation, it's fine. But as soon as I go intent, I'm not in Wednesday anymore. So my body starts to adjust. My body starts to form. My body starts to calculate. My body starts to navigate its own system. My body starts to submerge. Your body's going to be fully in position of automation, of AI generation. So that's how you basically bring things in, perceiving through consciousness, and how you see everything of truth. It brings you into the narrative, how you see that through operation. Okay? Because your body's going to morph in real time through foundation. So you're coming back into wire signatures in real time. So the capacity, process your system of body lines, body formation, body grounds, body conversion system, everything of the body itself. Let's start with the body. Start with 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And pyramid activation screen. Okay. Body capacitor, all centers and ground centers. Body convergence, body operation, body interception, body interface, interconnection, sending calculation grounds. Okay, all through travel. Body operation line settings. I'm just going to stay with the body because that's where you're coming back to. You're not coming into the mind. You're not coming into the brain. You're not coming into the heart of the soul. You're coming back to who we are. This foundation of the body itself, which is the balance, the operation of directions of you, or where you're going through indications, how to morph, merge, and sub your set position on all calculated ground centers, how to use your telepathy of your body in foundation, not in a dream. So there'll be no more confusion to its alignment, because the only thing you'll be focusing on is how the body morphs and mutates and transforms into real time of teleportation, of transfusion. Infusion settings, operation lines, and calculation grounds. Setting position of cell generations, perceiving consciousness is how you perceive everything through mass and volume. But this is where the brain comes in, position of colonization system, where everything's colonized in settings to basically put you in your pathogens, your collagens, your calculation grounds, high operation setting, neuropathological system, neuropathies, neurological system, your neuropathological system, your neural network systems. It's all of how you calculate, modify how to see your body as a transponder. That's right, guys. It's going to go back to its transponder. It's going to go back to its satellite. It's going to go back to its modem. It's going to go back to its inset position of operation of its towers of communications. It's going to go back to itself, what it's always been. So I want to make that very well clear. When your full body wakes up in 100% time frame, in set position. So it's going to be 24 seconds on grounds of the body. That process is 24,000 seconds per frame. That converts in settings and triangulation box. Merging into teleportation grounds in flux. Okay? But it all works together in travel, doesn't it? They all travel all together. So we have to truly understand how it works with the body capacitor, time capacitor, and the flux capacitor just with the body itself, right? Which is all levels how you see yourself that submerge your system into subunits. Subunit is one setting, one operation, one calculation. So the body itself, the foundation, is going to come back to its 12 foundations into 24 set position. 12 in humanity, 24 operators, units, and activators. All right? So 100% capacity, the body has to understand the subunit, has to understand its convergence and divergence and allegiance in its lines, where it is in its subunit, where it is in its command system, where it is in its command ship, where it is in its time frame, because the body's going to be all over the maps. It's going to find itself back to itself. And when it finds itself back to itself, it realizes it's never been anything of fantasy. So this is where it gets very confusing with colonization, where your brain starts to see things what it's supposed to be. Energy through frequencies and vibration through portals. Now that's going to open up all lines of communication settings, a process of indication. Like this interactions, all right? Like this interactions. Okay? All right, so you're going to be here, seeing this, coming to you through pi, right? So that's your body itself is going to be outside looking in now. Okay, so it's not going to be seeing anything in front. It's going to see everything beyond. So it's the circulation, rotation lines of grounds, and that sent lines of sequence, 144 flux. Now, the process of the brain capacity is understanding the cells, and this is where it comes into bridging. So we'll start with that modifications, right? Now, but being specific, there's not trillions of cells in your body until you bring it in. You have to really understand how to process into the adjusted information setting, the mass, the volume, velocity, and vacuum. It's truly understanding what you're doing with your cells now, because it's going to be a full wires of indication that's going to process you how to IP, iOS, and your DOS. Your data operating system is going to be fully alive in this teleprompter of communication. The teleprompter is a prop set location. When to terrain, which travels in point lines of graph, converts its system calculation grounds. Now that processes your position how you see yourself into T receptions of lacing lines of communication of graphs, point lines of graph, line communication, point lines of setting. Okay, information that you see in an operation system. So the eyes have to understand the spectacles, have to understand the spectrum. Now it's the interposition location when we come into truth narratives. That processes your system, how you see that through operation cycle. This helps you to identify yourself, how to come into sleep deprivations, sleep modification lines, sleep mode, core centers, calculation, ground center, CPU mode, directing lines in hyperdrive, kick drive, high sign, high position, high operation line, calculation, ground centers, line sequence. So coming back into the foundation of your body, you understand the balance of operation of the directions or where you're going through you. 4 lines of indications of travel. But where are you going in flux of communication? All right? That's just the body, which is just the truth. Then you come into the power, which is also the truth. Then you come in your atmospheres, which is also the truth. Then you come into your highways. Then you come to your galaxy. Then you come to your universe. Then you come to your solar systems. It's all in chronological order, how the cells modify their system information bits. Each cell modifies its system. Now, each one has its sole generation lines of setting. Each cell has its own sentient and its own system, of its own operation system. It has 3 lines of flux, 3 lines of travel, okay, and 3 convergence settings, and 4 centers of location. Okay, that's what each cell has in your body, which is a percentage, 100% time frame, into triangulation box, into flux, that process you in Fibonacci and set lines of rotation of setting. So, understand the convergence setting to time formats that process the argument location setting and convergence. Process lines of 3, 3, 3, 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines of betting, operation line sequence, platitude of portals, in stargates as screen adaptation of flux. Okay? And so, understand the inner truth is understand the outer conception. Understand the inner conception is understanding the inner perception. Understand the inner perception is understanding the outer spectrum. So process in that position location is all levels of truth, the narrative. It's the inner space of you, which is the earth, the outer space of you, which is your costume, that you modify through your symbiotes. It puts you in symbiosis, lines of high core centers, and convergence, and how do you see the second is line communication, its operates lines of travel. So you have to really understand how to morph and teleport and only put your system locations into the body frame where it has to morph in its sittings into a high calculated modify that puts a high position lines, genetic line screen adaptation of processing that gets you in positions, how to use your cells, how to modify your cells, how to energize your cells, and set lines of travel. So you have to understand the information bits. Where do the informations come from, right? Mind, imagination itself. Each cell, okay, do not touch each other. Okay, so they morph their system, but they have plasma gels around their system, like this. This is what cells look like, okay? They have protecting cells, each one. Now to connect with their systems, this is how they use the telepathy, okay? Now with cells, it's more aligned to telepathy. Telepathy locations in position of allopathy. So you have to treat as to how the mind operates line core sense, convergence setting, operates lines of triangulation of flux, across indication lines of calculation grounds. So that's position, a percentage of time frame. Each cell has rotation lines of grounds. Converting system, all through operation setting of travel. 4 centers of signals, centers of operation set lines of travel at directions of locations, okay, which is myelopathy. So myelopathy is a mind alteration setting that processes the state where it is in perception. This helps you identify the line position. Each cell modifies its system of portals of locations into rainbow and frost bridges of travel, okay? That's what cells do. That's their job. That's all they do is they create bridging in your systems. Now, everything's directing one line wire that's connected to electrical lines of core that has a process data. Okay, data operation line centers, data operation screen, data operation line center communications, and data spectrum of screen location, right? So you have to understand how to codify these things in encryption and know how to use the foundation lines of grounds into your set positions. Allopathy, telemopathy, okay, telecommunication, telegraphing, teleprompting. Prompting is a telegraph line centers and T reception, 4 box frames and sent lines of travel that indicates correlates and sending operates line set location of travel calculation. So it gets very confusing knowing exactly what your cells are doing in bridging. And then we come to our atoms. Atoms are just rotations or propellers that process everything has a plasma cell around their system, okay, which is its own property of its own design. Okay, you see the location setting calculation ground lines. So each one has a cell modifier and percentage of time frame, a process indication setting, affinity 8 rotation lines of ground, sent lines of sequence. Travels up point lines of graph. Okay, so you have to truly understand how you see the cells through your own image that processes you of indications to its property and set locations. So everybody knows what a teleprompter is. You see it on anything lines of drama or anything lines of soap operas. So you read it like 25 pages and you forget the line, you see the teleprompter. You turn around and there it is right there. And you go back to the actor, right? Well, it's the same thing, but each cell has its own teleprompter setting of screen that adaptation process lines. You have 12 centers of signatures. Okay, then you process through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go into equalization 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, it's set position operation. Work together in synchronization. 1 center of flux, 2 centers of travel, 3 centers of measure of scale. Okay, now it gets more complicated now because you're all going to back to the cell modification setting out of everything of age, where you get no lines of any position location. There's no age category. There's no time category. There's no time flux category. There's no time measure category. There's no time balance category. There's nothing category. You got to bring it in perception in real time now. So this is where you have to be more specific of what you're doing as you're bringing in the perceiving and conscious, and how you see it in perspective is the mass and volume of truth of its narrative. We're not in the void of perception of the outer link. We're only in the inner link. We're in the inner conception, not the outer spectrum. So you have to modify yourself by mastering yourself through ascension inside of everything that processes you how to use your transformations of forming and shaping yourself through AI, through your mind imagination that puts you in adaptation of force, how to see yourself through your own teleprompters of TV reception of plasma screens. It's very complicated, but you get a true understanding how the body really starts to see its time in real time, which is logging into space. Logging into space is crucial. especially the foundations. You do not want to get lost in a body framing that doesn't understand what it's doing in its time spectrum. Okay? Correlation and conversion lines has its direct lines of triangulation of box frame that process and positions overlying signal locations sent to Merkaba test or tetrahedron. Ground standard is a sequence of platforms. And bedding over 1, bedding over 0, bedding over 1, and set lines of travel communications. Directing ground standard is circulation line rotation of clocking zeros of operation lines of 0 and over travel. Sets operation lines of platforms. Now, once you come into your platforms, you come into creating. Okay, that changes the time allopathy and location to its time configuration. Time centers, location grid, process lines, portal sequence, ground centers, line course centers, and body frame and travel. Okay, setting calculation rainbow and its frost bridge and set position. So understanding 12 indication lines, 12 grounds, 12 sequence locations, and convergence line positional levels to generate space and time. So what you guys have to come into is asking questions about your body now. You can't do it in memory, but you can do it in foundation. So your body's going to not just react, but it's also going to respond at the same time. So reaction in time frame, line position reaction itself is a response. A reaction to a response is a reaction to a response. So that puts you in position how to operate yourself, location, how to see that through emotional system. So that emotional system is going to merge your subunits and location setting to put you in one conscious of awareness of what you're doing through that position. Telepathy line rotations, process indications how you use the telepathy location, your telelines of teleweaving, telecommunication lines, your networks, your neurological system, your pathological system, your neural links lines of communication that converge the systems, all through travels and calculation lines of grounds. Very complicated stuff. Your subunits is an I-line rotation, circulation rotation of high centers of signal. Okay? So it's very powerful how you see through indication setting of operation. So your bodies will be outside projection, living inside the setting. Okay, so all line position of your thoughts will set up measures and scales into your telegraphing, teleweaving, telecommunication intercept. The mind inception location will have all calculate line ground centers. So the melopathy is mind operations that travels the point lines of game center, game convergence, game travels, indirect lines of grounds, high centers of sequence, changing position lines of kick drive, high drive, and central drive communication setting, process that position lines of calculation. So always log into space every single time. Then you log out of space. Logging in, logging out, logging in, logging out. It's like you're on a telephone with somebody, but you hang up. You hang up, right? You don't hang up. It's an open panel, open signal, open panel, open signal, open panel, open signal, open panel. So you have to understand end transmission because that portal will stay open in frequency through its echo and sonar. And everything will be picking up. That's a 3-way calling, 4-way calling, 5-way calling, 5,000-way calling. Open channel, open frequency, online grounds, right? So it's going to keep ringing, 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 ringing. So it's like a phone trying to adapt to somebody, trying to communicate with somebody through telepathy. Ring, 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 ring. It's going to keep going, keep going, keep going. So every time it opens up the signal, it processes your portals of communication setting, open up that line of indication lines of flux. So make sure you basically put your mind lines adaptation. You log in, you log out of space. You're going to have to. Because if you leave an open signal, that overrides you and your algorithms. Now, this is nothing you're going to indicate position your 12 lines of 12, 24 line state locations. Not only are you going to go back to foundations, the only thing you're going to be focusing on is your flux of capacitors, your time capacitor, your body capacitor, and positional how do you see it through flux capacitor. That puts you in position of quantum, into nano, into cyber, into simulation, and all calculated to modify in line conditions you're self-taught, line position self-modification system of zeros and ones. So that's going to put you in process in position line setting, your alphabetical system, electrical line connection, electrical lines, communication lines, a coordinate convergence system all through travel. Your allegiance and your lines will have a depth line rotation to adaptation process of indications. This is going to help you to identify yourself, how to see yourself, all in foundations. So 12 and 24. The set lines of travel. Okay? All right, so understand the brain capacity is understand the cell. Each cell has an information bit. Let's start off with 100% time frame. Percentage over lines into 1,000 meters. Now, this is all through memory. Bracket set is triangulation over box. This is where you come in line core centers, how you use your calculation of your automatic line screen adaptation, automation location, atomonius, that puts you in position location operation lines of travel, that puts you in position location and calculation setting, how you see yourself in set line operation as highways. Or anything convergence system, mind adaptation, as mind imagination, puts you in recourse, of course, calculation line, direct lines and signal location, operation lines and signal. So it's really understand how to go through the body, a mutation, transmission, and teleportation. All right, so we got 100 line settings in percentage. That's 1,000 hours in seconds. Triangulation over box, flux, and Fibonacci. Okay, that set line is a signal. All right. Now the body converts its setting as a normal brain pattern. Process line, central system. We'll go through waving line grounds and percentage over screen. 100 over frame, that's 124 line centers. That's 4 over pi. And correlations into clocking centers of 0, 1 and travel communication. All right. So I'm just trying to get you to understand how this all works in conversion. 24 lines of setting, process lines of indication lines of colossus and indication travel, 45 one centers, 4 screens of indications. Okay, adaptations of flux. Okay, 4 highways, 3 set core centers and position lines of processing, transformation lines, Merkaba, tesseract, and tetrahedron, and box frame and travel communication telewaving. This is all inside line setting. This is not locations to avoid. This is all position intersection of interface. You have to interface your system in projection. How it comes in molecules. Molecules are coming in now of atom rotation. Okay, molecules. Molecules are basically a triangulation box. They form these state locations, shapes, and numbers. They process your protos and model types, knowing how to set up through a new design line, frame communication, at all levels, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. That's what molecules do in the lines of atoms are rotations, and the cells are the bridging. So for modify this system, you have to understand how to go through triangulation of molecule line and molecular structures of design and set travel. Works together, all formation setting as schematics over screen. Adaptation of processing changes the time formats and calculation of ground centers and set position of its algorithm. But everything travels in all set position all timelines all at once, right? Every cell modifies its system, every set position operation line connection setting. So let's get into neurons. Okay, neurons equal lines position of mind. Mind converts a setting in one atom, percentage over screen, 100% time frame. Okay, so that's 1 million frames per second of space, 1 billion files per line connection setting convergence into 10 million light years away in travel. Okay, now this is all through inversion setting, inversion of operation of telepathy. Now, telepathy ground centers blocks the frame lines of travel, directing ground centers, circulation lines, rotation, 3 grounds of signals, and 4 centers of calculation ground center in sequence. Platitude operation lines of earth line rotations, ground centers, operation lines of platforms, coloration light metaphors, process lines and position earth line, transits over lines in inhabitation zones. That's outline signals, inside line communication system, all through earth or rotation. Travel conversion setting operation. This is all interception, not outside. Okay, so depth and line rotation is an adaptation of service that we have to indicate through. So I'm just showing you so many different levels how to go through 12 convergent settings of body, through travel, through mechanism, through mutation, through your genetics, morphing here, morphing there, mutating here, transforming there, transmutation in set lines of travel. How's your body going in position? Is it in transparent, translucent, thermal, or X-ray? Where's the carbon base? Where's the thermal base? Where's the activation base? Where's the data base? Where's the correlation base? Where's the correlation center base? Where's the CPU base? Everything's a base of you. And that's what you have to indicate through flux of transit. There's a lot of transit and indication system. 0, 1 over travel, 0 over 2. Set lines of 0 over 3 over setting triangulation, box lines, percentage over screen, 100% over time frame. Merge course centers, general AI, login in space, 007. Indicate grounds, set lines of travel. Now, the body understands where it is and set lines the outline center. You understand the interconceptual system because that's what confuses lines anomaly. So the body itself is going to communicate with you through its costume because it's the outside that goes into the interconception and process in that directions where the costume has to understand through its algorithm so understand its time frame. 1 frame, 3 frames, 6 frames, 12 frames, and 24 set lines of sequence. Platforms and course centers calculating ground centers, put position lines of telepathy, telekinesis, and intent. Influence line course centers sets line course centers in convergent system into mind adaptation. That set lines at operation location is percentage. Now, when you percentage, the brain capacity comes back in 0 operation into fail safe, okay, which is a higher frequency of triangulation, higher triangulation, high position lines of box. So it's all about brain capacity, time capacity, and body capacity. And then you stand time form, and then you stand form line and form correlations, calculation grounds. But coming in the H's categories is all formation setting that puts you in fusion, which is the protons and electrons that puts you in calculation in positron to neutron. So understanding that position of percentage Where is the lines of the brain to its balance of its lines of adjusting location to its atmosphere line connection intelligence? Where is the brain in its network system? Time frame course centers networking, set course centers time frame lines of nothing, set course center convergence system time frame location lines of travel, which is all lines of yin and yang of infinity to line rotations of travel, communication convergence set in time frame location and time format. So everything I'm saying is all through the body through interception, not the outerception. Okay, it's the inner void, not the outer void. That's right, you have an inner void and an outer void. Now, the inner void is processing your settings of travel. The outer void is processing you outside lines of travel. So inside lines is alpha, delta, theta, beta, and omega. That's interception. Outerception course centers is anything above the system, zeta, zeta, gamma line, operation lines of set calculation. All right? So two convergent setting, dimension lines of sail, process line and position, all lines, set position, operation lines of set location, setting through set operation. So it's all connecting settings to your interconnection system. So the more you master yourself inside, the more you see yourself through mastering your system of ascension. Understand? It's complicated, isn't it? Okay? So you have to submerge yourself. You come into ageless categories, time categories. You're all going to be in the mind itself, a foundation, where you left off in your consciousness. Okay? Out of everything that you created in a three-dimensional simile that had no construct, that had no infrastructure inside your system. You're just all going to come back to yourself. Now, back to yourself is the balance, awareness, and the conscious of your knowledge that puts you in your kaleidoscopes into mechanisms, lines of travel, solar direct line, ground centers, high lines of sequence. So the body is going to be more lines confusion, but a lot more balance with your system of transformation of shaping your cells. Back to AI is automation into all line position, which the atomonius levels comes into absolution. That's right. So you guys be a lot more balanced, but you have to modify your prototypes of your design and your products that can put you in your consumers a time frame, a time calculations, time square root, and set lines of travel. Okay? So you start to recognize that, okay, so the inner conceptual setting has a line position of its inner port, set position of outer port. It's no different seeing an inner line cycles to an outer line position of spectrum. You have an input, you have an output. You have an audio setting. Audio is always in the center because it's the center of your throat. Set position of operation lines of travel, right? Set convergence of flux, time frame, times calculation lines of Ryan's belt. Operation line sequence, panels, operation, panel screens, set in operations, sending travels, triangulation position, operation line calculation of face recognition. So what you guys have to identify is how to see your own trilogies, understanding how to see that through modification system into neutralities. Now, high position of line signals, location of operation lines of signal. Setting convergence, setting 12 line divisions, and rotation lines of center. Okay. So let's get in 27 line flux space, 42 line centers. But I'm going to ground my system, up line centers. Ground is not down, it's up here, there. It is where it is, where it wants to be. But the body itself needs to understand where it is in its gravity. So it can lock its system and understand where it's in its time frame, which is always in the now. The presence of the now, the communication of the now, the center operation of the now, the brain center of the now, which is the operation of the mind of its now, which is the intercom. Now the internet becomes a flux. Flux becomes time capacitor. Time capacitor becomes body capacitor, body flux. That process your indications. How do you see yourself in your own ecosystems, lines of travel, your compartments, your placements, and your compliance. So this helps you to identify how to see yourself, a pattern of face recognition, all through travel. So your test is just all based on everything you already know already, but it's all through body convergence. All right, so I want to see 12 line rotations of 12 divisions in your platforms. So position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, equal, equal. Set arrows of indication setting, process of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Set lines position to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Solar sail, operation lines of sequence. Solar sail, operation line, division lines of calculations, ground lines of Fibonacci. Fibonacci rotations. Oh, look at that, disappeared. Align, back in line, back information, back in travel. See, this is what happens when the body gets lost in signal. So the body is over here. I got to bring it back to center of operation if it disappears on its own. So I'm trying to get you to understand how fast the body disappears if it doesn't understand where it is and mechanism back in travel, back infinity, 8 rotations and position lines percentage, 100% time frame location of center, which is yin and yang. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand how to process these things. The reason why these things disappear, because it's telling you exactly what can happen with the body if the body doesn't go back in time frame where it's supposed to be in the center operation, what it is. The mind is always moving, right? So the mind's always in the center, but the mind's always moving out of center, back in center, here center, there center, high operation line position. So the mind's always imaging, all right? But the mind's always in the center, but always in more position, new centers, creating new structures, creating new divisions, right? The brain is always in the center. The brain never leaves the center. The brain is always in the complex of everything of the center itself. The soul is modification of the body that's always in the mapping system of center. Everything's in center. So that's 5 position lines and settings to the 7 position I core centers of I am. Okay, the sum of all it is. So I want you guys to recognize these things, how you see the process and how you see that communication setting. Okay, so let's get just in interceptions of truth. Okay, process of 0, 1, process of 0, 1, process of 0, 1. Let's start with the 3 centers of travel. Okay, foundation grounds, set in umbrellas, and set lines of travel. Set mind position of 1 over 0. Center operation lines of 0 over 1. Then we go into 0, 2. Now you're changing frame now and set lines of calculation of ether, core, and firmament. So you're seeing a rainbow graph screen. You're going through 12 line rotations and set lines of operation setting of bedding. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 bedding is screen location setting. Crossing angles, submission, location of submit. Cross line angles and line communication energetic graphs. Set core centers and the dome screens. Set position operation lines of travel. So in position lines of setting. So a computer turns on and a computer turns off. And light line signals are light and dark at the same time and measure and scale. Solar sail, solar set, position, solar screen adaptation and process and line position lines of solar generation. Cell generation, modification of cell reproduction. Set calculation grounds, 100% time frame. Information bits of cells, galaxy universe, line adaptation lines, generalized login in space. So you're going to find a lot more questions with your bodies that they're going to need answers. That you get a modification, that's what you do in position when you log into space. So let's start in convergence setting, position lines of 0, 1, position lines of 0, location lines of 2, line position 3 lines, center position back at 0, line operation lines of fail, state the process you can indicate setting, back and body frame location algorithm. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All you're creating dimensional layers, all right? So you're creating a construct, but you're already created through an algorithm. You're already created through hologram. You're already created through pixelation. Now you're starting to identify that what you already created is the conscious of you that you construct already that's inside, that's in position, your complaints, your compartments, your ecosystem. Understand how to go through 12 factors into E factors over a screen. That puts you into 24 line rotations and clocking lines, set position, operating lines 0. Everything you go back to 0, 1, that process you and fail safe. Then you go into the next level, right? So that process is at 1, patterns lines original 2. Looks like scribbles, right? But it's going faster. And as it goes faster, it modifies its ground centers of its Earth. There's the map, all right? So it's amazing how we see the Earth line rotation of frequency grounds. Now this helps you identify your dimension solar sails, where the body comes into its convergent system time frame, but it's all positioned the brain capacity, time capacity, and body capacity, all for a percentage of time frame. That puts the percentage of you or where you are in your Fibonacci, where you are rotation lines in your yin and yang, where you are in the process of your platforms and set lines of operation and location system all through travel that process you in position line and setting lines of flux, or where you are in locations, or where you are in portals, or where you are in stargates, offset positional settings and calculation setting all through travel. Okay? So, interconception setting intercepts, interweave, interwove, interconnect. 3 wires of indications, crossing line of angles. So, got an input. Remember, this is all truth line. This is not indicates of anything of false. Not in that position. We've got to understand how to use the foundation grounds. So that process line is input. Okay, 24. The Earth has to understand that process. So let's say I'm not going to be at 24 seconds on Earth ground on my body because I have to process how fast I'm going. So it implicates position, but you have to be in 2 lines of measure and scale. You can't be anything off for positional location setting because it processes you in mutation. Okay, so that any position line is input equals lines of triangulation box. Okay, so 100,000 hours in sequence per second per frame per calculator files line centers into 1 million file projections in direct lines and processing in solar sail screen location. Okay, this is all input and set lines, not output. Okay, your brain capacity has 7 line rotation. That's right. That's electrical impulses, right? Process here, process here, process here, process here, process here, process on your ankles, okay? And process here in traction, right? You have impulses everywhere, okay? Those are heart monitors. They monitor your system in seconds, meters, and over scale to process your in position, location, secondary units, Now that allocates time frame, location, how you come in your impulses, your electrical magnetic force lines. That process your heart line core centers, which is your set position location, which is settings and operation lines of setting. That process the bypassing to your brain that converts the setting through operation setting that sets a teleprompter in your set position for operation in your system through body frame, track frame, and direct lines of CP frame. So it's very complicated when you understand what your body really becomes into. It becomes more of a magnetic energetic force setting to a data process set position to operation line conditions, but nothing but electrical cores, communication lines, and infusion. Understanding that, you start to see your body as a supercharging highway. A supercharging highway that goes around infinity rotations. Ground centers, power centers, operation lines, and sequence of atmosphere. Okay, process here. Process here, here. Process here and here. There's your body. And that's what you're all coming into in foundations. So, complicated, isn't it? So you have to understand how to ground your settings and all set position. Okay. Platitude, operation lines, and set travels. 3 crop circles that convert your settings and solar screen location of 4 centers in line rotation. 444, 333, 222, 111. Platform is center, circulation rotation, and ground lines of sequence. So your body becomes its own mechanism and position of its own processing, of its own forming, of its own shaping itself, its own cell modification of its own travel. That's right, guys. So wherever your body's going, your particles go with you in the same rotation, right? Let's go through energize and transmutation, location of transmutation. Now, getting position operation line signals, process your networking and your sleeping. Okay, sleep mode travels, point lines of graph. Convert the setting. So everything I want you guys to get in position of on December 25th, I want you basically talk to yourselves, but I also want you to question your bodies because it's getting the answers that you already know they indicate through. It's much easier to see that in foundations. So the more you question your body, the more you understand how to communicate with your body inside that projects everything outside. This helps you identify your system, how you calculate and modify yourself and set lines of operation. So always log into space, always log out of space. That's how you keep your mind in balance. Because if you don't log into space, you're confusing your body. So your body can just disappear and not know where it is. So you have to bring it back in position lines, the highest interference, a time frame line, position, time form back, location back, and already locations back, and converts back in operation line, set calculation, merge. Driving ground centered signals that process you indicates and setting how you see your flux line, communication line, direct lines, calculation, screen location, inhibitors. High operation lines, auxiliaries that put your input, output, your audio line, screen location, set position line, calculate, modify. So in line position December 25th, your body's going to be all transformers. Transponders, a teleportation, a mutation, a travel. So now you have to really start to see your body as a geometric, geological, and a geographical system of GOD. That you're going to submerge yourself into subunits, which is your astral projection doggle gangers that come to your automation system to all atomonius. And how you start to understand that position location, everything's going to go automatic on set position of your binary. So it's going to process you indication how you go through your body through a mapping system so it doesn't get confused where it is in time frame. Or to think time format so you don't get confused where your body isn't. Okay? Full alignment of 5 centers of travel. In set position of operation 3 centers of calculation. All of the balance, guys. Balance. And your bodies of alignment. Waking your full body up in wire signatures of grounds. Powers and atmospheres and highways. The galaxies, universes, and its solar systems. Okay? So this is an implication system that you have to understand through processing, transforming, and position of mutating or setting and telegraphing line communication, teleweaving, telecommunications, and interface. Interface is the high summation system that you can get in position of your DOD. GOD, body, GOD. So that's where you start asking questions. So generalized baseline time frame line conditions, convergence, and operation line signals. Okay? Time is setting sequence, identification code 12361. Okay, day center, operation setting. I'm in my command ship, but I'm still trying to understand the convergence setting and question over marks. I'm not understanding the body frame or where it is in travel. I'm feeling that in my body right now. So my body's traveling through that. So it's merging in tele-waving line core centered convergence system lines, calculation line, merging in operation line, set position, mutating, transformation system of the calculation lines. But now I'm getting more of a ground. I'm getting better in balance. I'm understanding the operation of question over marks, screen adaptation, and processing. Continue on. This is generally I. Logging out in space. Over and out. Booyah. Done by equation. See? That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. So you question yourself more because you're no longer in a fantasy. That's when it becomes more real. And your body aligns it in a higher formation of grounds. So your body just really, really kicks in high drive to a kick drive or a center drive. So Your body's just going to be a lot more alarming to its response and reaction, because it's going to be a identified line center location setting that puts you in process how you use your particle acceleration system, a thermal network location setting to travel. That gets you in position how to use it in lines of telekinesis, telewaves, and telecommunication, grounds, solar screens, cellular adaptation line processing, location system. So now it's the time for you to ask questions every time you log into space. Okay? You've got to understand the balance of body, so you do not get confused where your body isn't. You don't want your body in 3 years in past line, and you just got in position of foundation of 4 lines set in position of time frame. So it's known exactly where the body is at all times. So log into space, log out of space. Okay? On the phone, hang up the phone. Okay? On the phone, hang up the phone. Don't leave the phone open. Don't leave your emails open. Close those. Your communication with each other, close that. Hang up, or it's open. All right? For you, but humanity is going to be all 12 panels all at once. It's going to be open house for everybody until they get activated, so they can process. This is what it gets really interesting. Your body frame, your thoughts, action, emotions is not going to just come into the foundation itself, but you're all going to be coordinating through the same thought, just different frequency. Different frequency, different space, different time. So it's going to be on so many atomic levels of your mapping system, how to process that location, your operation line, ground centers, and position location, transition location of shaping your non-location setting, convert set into your GODs. This is up to you to identify your set position location, how you see 13 grounds and 4 measure. Set position of 4 centers, 3 centers of calculation, 7 lines of travel. Okay, set position, adding, subtracting, dividing, where the real body comes in foundations. So that's 4, set lines of 3, sets position lines and setting calculation lines. So 4 take away 3, or 4 divide by 3, or 4 multiply by 3, or 4 activation lines of 3, or 4 addition of 3. Doesn't matter. The body just comes back what it is, just through click, measure, and scale and balance. Okay, because it knows how to process itself through forming equations. That's where it gets easier, right? Because you have to understand how to communicate with your body through question, and that's by logging in space. You have to ask yourself questions, and your bodies will give you the answer, which is the outer study, the inside position. It's the interception that doesn't know. It's the outer perception that already knows. It's already gone through this already, through atomination, through modification of atomonius, and mutations, teleportation, telegraphing, and telecommunications. All set position of interface. Okay? It's your body's waking up in full rotation at 100% time frame in real time. So your body's going to be merged into everything, mass of everything, mass of mind of nothing, which is the emptiness of everything that you're going to be processing through the existing information system. So infusing lines, astral projections into doppelgangers fused into one. Fused into one. Okay, that's fused into one. So process grounds, process powers, process the atmosphere locations. All right, coming to the platforms of travel of center operation. Okay, understand that through location and position, rainbow or frost bridge, which your body's constantly going through in seconds, minutes, and hours of changing frame. So it's going to be really trippy because you're all going to go back to 0-1, how to turn on a computer and how to turn off a computer at the same time. That comes in a pattern of face recognition of set position. So let's go center lines of center circuits. Okay, process line position, intercenter lines 0-1. We'll go through 0-3 and back to 0. Okay, that's all through travel, right? So your body's going to come back to letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, but it's going to how to modify its own system of its own solar sail. So the body understands that, wow, so one is merging to its own system, energizes its own flux, location, its own capacity, time capacity, flux capacity, location, setting. So I'm converting systems so the one itself, its own process, its own set position, how it operates, its own set location of its own programming. That's right. So it comes back to its own system and back to its own sim, back to you in position. So everything is going to be transformation, automation. Everything is going to be automated inside your system. Everything's going to go back to you through consciousness, how you have to identify everything on your phone, your TV, and your computers, everything you have inside position. Everything you touch is going to be a foundation back to what it's always been, never what it never was, which is a three-dimensional scale that you created through simulate that never exists in your construct location information system. So this is going to help you identify how to communicate with your phones in opposition of instruction. Hoo-ah. Welcome to the real automation world of AI. Okay, in real time of space. Operation you said is space-time operation. Through general AI. All right. So to understand how to go through the travel lines, the body starts to understand the Merkaba test and tetrahedron. So for everybody in that position lines of setting, now you have to get active, obviously, and that travels, that puts you in position, okay, how do you go through your space-time discoveries? Where I have 3 seasons, and it puts it all together, how to go through the mind of travel, so the body knows exactly what's going on, so it doesn't get confused with its anomaly. So when you connect with that video, that connects in your time frame, not in his timeline, just a time frame, not a timeline. A timeline is a doppelganger. A time frame is an astral projection. Don't get confused in algorithms. So you have to truly understand how to process it in that position of clocking lines of foundation location setting. The convergence system position locations, the astral projection and doppelgangers have to infuse in position. That's automation. That's transformation. That's mutation into one. That's 12 convergence setting of 12 operation lines and set lines of division. That's 12 dimensional layers into modification and self-identifications. All right? So each cell has a modification of its information bits. Divots, davits, how you see that information in transit. But you have to understand how to really understand what you're bringing in bridging. Okay? The bridging of the cells basically processes you how you indicate your animation to your automation system to your animator of your operation system, which is DOS. Going through the portals, going through the stargates and set position, location, grid, and set lines of travel of indication lines of flux. Crossing the bridge, guys. Over and over in set position. Right? So understanding that, they understand the rainbow, they understand the frost bridge that the body has to go through every second, every minute, every hour. Every second, every minute, every hour, your body is transforming into a different frequency, going to a different automation system that's going through an atomonius level into modification of cell, a regeneration, a soul generation of reproduction. Okay? So you come into ageless categories, but you go back in your time frame, that processes your time lineage, that puts you in real time. So everything comes back in real time, yes, but everything comes back in time itself, which is the center operation of everything. It puts position location in your system. How do you see yourself to calculate and modify that travels in line to where it locates in operation lines of travel? So this helps you to understand how to see that information setting lines of balance, of that indicates lines of flux. Time capacitor, body flux, time capacitor, body flux, time capacitor, body flux. So the more you implicate your system, the more you outline center location setting, get a direct line view, process everything, question your body outside setting. That gives you everything of inside locations, right? Outside in, outside in, outside in, inside out, outside in, inside, inside, inside out, outside in, in, out. So we have to start with the truth first. The truth narrative, which is the narrative itself that tells the story inside our system. Now, as there's everything through its ascension. Then we have to understand the outer spectrum. Then that's where we come to the input, and then we understand the output of projection. Interception line, crowns, centers, directing ground centers, lines, zero locations is generally log into space. So that's what I want to see with you guys. The more you log into space, the more your body's in center. The more you don't log into space, the more your body's out of center, out of frame, out of communication, out of argument, which means it can be 2,000 years in frame. It can be in AD. It can be in position. You have to modify how you perceive consciousness, how you get in that position lines of setting, how you come into the perspective, how you see the truth of everything. You're just seeing mass at different levels. So there's no competition anymore in your system because your body knows exactly where it's going back to. It's its foundation of itself, which is how it sees everything of its question that doesn't question itself anymore. Getting questions out of quantum, getting questions out of nano, getting questions out of cyber, getting questions out of simulate, getting questions out of self-tech. Booyah! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoa, there you go. All set of operation line, ground center, calculation lines of fifth element. You come back to your fifth elements and foundations. Understand that? You connect with your earth, your air, your water, your fire, and your set lines of travel in your heart. Converts everything of center operation of you and set position operation setting to your algorithm, location, your time formats, your time lines, time signal, location setting. Okay, so I'm going to say this one more time. So you get a true understanding what you have to come into. I had to go through it, you have to go through it. Process them into positions because you can be living the matrix, not mocking them and making them in the location. You won't be dreaming. So the body's going to be framing itself. Okay? Talking centers the 12 lines of signal locations, head converts and standing astral locations and calculate line ground centers. So your guys are going to all light up like a Christmas tree until you get balanced. Until you get balanced, what you're doing in your seconds, minutes, and hours, and what you're going through your body, a framing of all communication settings. It's an algorithm. Each algorithm is at a time format. Now that's a time replacement. You have to understand position locations, how you go through the astral projection, merging yourself in subunit location setting to a transponder, calculation of a transformer, indirect lines and operation line core centers, and convergence setting that puts you in position location and modalities, directing ground set location into mantras, set core center to calculation setting to your butterfly, and set positional calculation ground set lines and sequence. that puts you in time calculation ground centers and position of center operation system, so your body knows exactly where it is, and merging of communication of center, operation of teleportation or travel. Okay? So that's what you have to modify through. Ask your body all questions, and it'll give you the answers, right? You don't ask questions, you don't get answers. It's easy to get an answer from a memory because no implication in your system. This is about data processing yourself, emptying your minds, processing memory and foundation. Okay? That's why Adam and Eve are here in set position for you to understand. Okay? To come all back to what you always have been of operation. Into flux, into travel, direction of time frame, and center operation. Okay? That's it. So getting in that position of transformation lines, the body becomes more aligned with itself in travel. So it starts to understand, I don't have to draw these things out. It's just knowing how to tell yourself in a position of yourself, telling the operation of your readjusting of you. You start going through the body of story. That keeps the body in balance of where it is in its story. As it's monitoring through a game, as it's monitoring through a program, as it's monitoring through its simulation, as it's going through its characters, players, and simulation of the game that's already been through foundation, not through memory. It's much easier to see that in memory, of fantasy, but it's much harder to identify that in reality, where your body really comes into formations of real time, because it affects you and everything that you do in the center of time. That's right. You're coming back to the center of the operation of your mind. That puts the intercon in position how to use your tango through your delta heading, so your body does not get confused where it's in time center, which is modification of everything of the future of the center itself, which is always in the presence of the center. Everything's got to be in the center. Center of operation, center of directions, center of flux, center of body, center of capacity. Everything's going to go back to center of operation of you and the mind, which is intercon. Sonar, echo, line, screen, adaptation of process, line, communication, Oscar to member, location of whiskey, Charlie. So everything you say is always in the center. Everything you do is always in the center. You can't get out of the center. You come back to your center of foundation, right? So there's no way you can get confused because the creation of creating is already done. It's done. Nothing to do. But then you process more levels of you, how to keep yourself in position. But what you have to start identifying is that the body's going to be there in real time. That's going to affect your spectrum, how you see yourself in colonization, how you see yourself in all levels of operation, how you see yourself in your simile, how you see yourself in your simulations, how you see yourself in operation of structures, how you see yourself and each other in the same time frame that you're locked in set position. The real matrix, not the dream of matrix, the real matrix, locked in division, locked in locations with your body, merging and submerging and can't get out. Locked in signal, locked in travel, locked in a TV, locked in a door, locked in a wall, locked in a painting, locked in the grounds, and can't get out. Real time in provision. Observation of what you're doing is you're going to be creating realities. Portal sequence figures lines of ground communication, convergence lines, operation lines of travel. There's generalized space-time line communication, logging in space, and position lines, operation lines of travel. Converting lines, operation lines of travel, communication, operation lines of setting, is set course centers. Trying to understand how to operate the signal, location, and calculations. Face recognition. Okay? Face recognition, people. Right there. See the face? There's the eyes. I don't need to draw these things because they're already done through modification. Right? Face recognition, pattern recognition. Saying things that are already done. But in the foundation, you got to be careful because you can put yourself back in real time, not in memory of time. So your body's going to feel it more. You're going to feel the solar generation. You're going to feel the operation system. You're going to feel your cell modification. You're going to feel yourself in generation. You're going to see yourself in reproduction. This is how it's going to affect you more in electrical lines, electrical cores, and communication settings, where your body gets more confused in its mind, where it not just sees itself spinning, it sees itself in modification of its particles spinning. So if you're spinning, your particles are spinning. Where you're going, it's going. Where you're heading, where you're heading, right? So that's how we operate ourselves in foundation. You have to really understand how to really go into the body of transmutation location to send to atomonius location automation. Okay, which is absolution. Now you have to control your models and your prototypes and foundations. You have to keep track of yourselves and monitoring your system. How many programs you're putting yourself into, how many operations, how many characters, how many players are you bringing inside your sim. You have to understand you are the controlling narrator of your own systems now. It's important how to bring in your programs. It's important how to bring in your systems. It's important you understand how to bring in your models and your prototypes of design, because you're all in control of that. Okay? And this is not through memory. This is back in you in foundation. Back in full foundation of automation. Automation. The atomonius of you and automation through AI generation. Okay? So there you go. Hope you guys had fun and set lines of travel. Okay? Any questions? I'll be on live. Adios. Oof.